What's up, guys? I'm Bob Tompkins with the Living in SC team at Real Broker, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video of Living in South Carolina, we are going to be talking about whether or not the South Carolina housing market is facing a potential crash. I know this is something that is on a lot of people's minds, so we're going to go over a few of the numbers, kind of walk through what this means and what it may mean for you if you're considering moving to the area or moving from one part of South Carolina to another. But before we get into that, if you are considering making one of those moves, our team here at the Living in SC team would love to help you. So please reach out to us at info@livinginsc.com or give us a text at the number listed below and we will connect with you. But without any further ado, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, this is a conversation that's happening across the real estate landscape in the United States, basically everywhere. The conversation about interest rates continuing to go up, home prices in most places remaining pretty stable, and the question that consumers have is the market gonna come down? Are prices going to crash? Because the truth is that affordability of homes across the US and in South Carolina have become more and more difficult to afford. When you take home prices that aren't coming down and then you couple it with higher rates. Now I know I may have some people watching that say, oh, when I bought a house in the 80s, this interest rate is super low compared to that. I understand, but in the last 15 years, this is the highest rate that we've seen as we approach 8%. So for this interest rate to be as high as it is over the short-term historical average, if you look at the last 15 years, and home prices not coming down, there are a lot of Americans that are feeling the strain on their budget when they're trying to afford a home. So as we explore this, there's a few data points that I think are key in seeing whether or not South Carolina could be facing a housing market crash. Because it is important to differentiate that every single state and every single market could be facing different challenges as these different market conditions shake out across the country. But before we get into that data set, I do want to make one quick disclaimer, and that is the markets across South Carolina could also vary. For example, I'm in the Greenville Anderson market in the upstate of South Carolina, and what we're looking at here could look different than maybe Myrtle Beach or Charleston or Columbia. So it's important with any sort of specific market that you get in touch with the right person there to get very up-to-date and specific information on that area. That being said, we at the Living in SC team are the resource for all of that. You can reach out to us and we'll connect you with the best person in that area to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date information. Now, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get right into it. So when you look at some of the housing data in the state of South Carolina, one of the most interesting things is if you look back year over year, from the middle of the year in 2022 to the middle of the year in 2023, what home prices have done. Now, it may come as a bit of a surprise to you, but the median home price in South Carolina as of July of 2023 is just north of $287,000, and that's actually up 3.2% year over year. There's a lot of people that think because interest rates have gone up and maybe the market has slowed a little bit, that prices have come down or that sellers are beginning to negotiate. When the truth is, if you look at year over year data, in the state of South Carolina, home prices have continued to increase. Now that year over year change is dramatically down if you compare it years back to 2021 to 2022. However, it is still increasing and showing an upward trajectory, which does on the surface look like South Carolina could be avoiding a crash or even a market setback because prices continue to trend upward. In addition to that, when you take into account what interest rates were a year ago, which was about 5.5% at this time of the year, and today where they're right around 8%, that is a significant monthly payment difference if people are putting down the same down payment. And when you look at a 2.5% interest rate increase, and then you consider that home prices have still gone up 3% over that period of time, that shows us that people are still moving to the state of South Carolina and they're moving within the state And that demand does not seem to be slowing down because despite the higher interest rates, people are still willing to pay more for the same home than they were a year ago. One of the even more interesting data points, in my opinion, is that in the month of June, now this is going back a couple of months, but in the month of June 2023, there were actually 24% of homes across the state that sold above their listed price. And one of the things that we hear from a lot of consumers is with prices where they're at, with interest rates where they're at, that they may want to sit on the sidelines or they may not want to offer full price. They want to try and negotiate a lot of different terms. But when a quarter of the houses that are hitting the market are still selling for over list price, it shows that there is a real demand and desire for people to be in the state of South Carolina. And now we're going to talk about in a little bit why some of this demand may continue and why it hasn't slowed down and why it may not slow down. And I actually think this last data set that we're gonna get into is the most critical and the most important. And if it were to change, we could see a scale back in numbers because interest rates and home prices really are subject to this last data set that we have. And that last data set is the housing inventory in the state of South Carolina. This is something that I think gets commonly overlooked by consumers. They simply look at the numbers, the rates, and the home prices, and they say, hey, things have to slow down. But the fact of the matter is they don't have to slow down, especially if demand continues to outweigh supply. And the housing inventory in South Carolina is way down from where it needs to be. So when we think about the Fed and we think about home prices, those are things that will continue to go up. The interest rates will continue to go up. Housing prices will continue to go up until that supply outweighs the demand. That's basic economics, supply versus demand. But in the economic situation that we're in, you have to think about lending costs and the builders that build homes. They look at these lending costs and they question whether or not they want to borrow the money that they need to build the homes if there is some risk involved to them doing so. And because of that, builders, even though in South Carolina are still building at a solid pace, they're not actually building fast enough in order to make up the supply gap. Now, just for reference, this will help put things into perspective about just how bad our housing inventory is in South Carolina. Pre-pandemic, we were actually looking at a statewide inventory. This is homes that are actively listed for sale of around 26,000 homes. This was pre-pandemic. Currently, today, as of August 2023, we are looking at a total statewide inventory of around 13,000, which means we have roughly half the amount of homes for sale today that we did 4 years ago. But we still have a steady supply of people that want to move here from out of state, and we have a lot of growth markets around South Carolina, which has put us in a position where the demand to be here, even with job relocations and different things like that, vastly outweighs the amount of supply that is available to people. And when you consider this, it is by far and away the most important marker when we're looking at will there be a housing crash? Because as long as demand outweighs supply, that's not going to happen. So if currently you're sitting on the sidelines and you're waiting for the market to crash, you're waiting for things to crumble, I have bad news for you. If this supply issue does not get solved, then you're gonna be sitting on that sideline for a long time. And if you're sitting on that sideline for a long time, some of our other markers do show that home prices and interest rates may continue to go up, making affordability even more difficult for the average home buyer. Now, I don't mean for this video to be discouraging in any sort of way. I really just want it to be informative so you know what's going on in the South Carolina housing market. It's likely that we are not facing a crash, but we are likely looking at an extended market of less affordable home prices and monthly mortgage payments. So it's very important if you are in the housing market, you're looking to make a move, that you're consulting with people that can give you good advice and can help navigate that process for you. And once again, us at the Living in SC team at Real Broker would love to be that resource for you to help guide you through what is a very difficult and challenging real estate market today. Once again, you can reach out to us at info@livinginsc.com or text us at the number listed below. If this video has been informative and helpful, we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, check out some of our other videos, and then we'll see you next time on Living in South Carolina.